I found out my parents were spending $250,000 on my little sister's wedding the same week my doctor told me that, if I kept waiting, I might lose the ability to walk. If you've ever had one of those weeks where your whole life splits into a before and an after, you know the feeling. It's like somebody takes your world, tilts it, and everything that looked normal before suddenly looks twisted. For me, that week started in a freezing exam room with a paper gown stuck to my back. "Okay, Emma," Dr. Howard said, rolling his stool closer to the monitor. "I'm going to walk you through your MRI, all right?" I nodded, fingers clenched around the edge of the table. My left leg was doing that tingling, burning thing again, like a nest of angry bees had moved into my calf. On the screen, my spine looked like something from a sci-fi movie, white and gray bands with ugly dark smudges between them. "You see these discs?" He pointed. "Here and here? L4, L5, L5S1. They're degenerating more quickly than we'd hoped. That's why you're getting numbness and shooting pain." "Okay," I said, trying to sound calm. "So, more physical therapy? Different meds?" He hesitated. That was my first clue this wasn't one of our usual let's tweak the plan conversations. "We've done PT, injections, anti-inflammatories," he said gently. "Your symptoms are progressing. You told me last time you almost fell on the stairs." I swallowed. "I tripped," I said. "Once. Emma." His voice softened. "You're 27. You're already changing the way you walk to protect that nerve. If we don't decompress it surgically, you could have permanent damage. Weakness, chronic pain, even loss of bladder control." My throat closed up. "Surgery," I repeated. "Discectomy and fusion," he said. "We'd remove the damaged disc material, stabilize the spine with screws and rods. It's a big surgery, but you're young and otherwise healthy. You'd have a good chance at long-term relief and keeping full function." "How soon?" I whispered. "Soon," he said. "Within a couple of months at most. Nerves don't like being pinched." I stared at the monitor so I wouldn't have to meet his eyes. "Insurance?" I asked finally. He tapped through a few screens on his tablet, frowning. "You're on the bronze plan through your job, right?" "Because it's the only one I can afford," I muttered. "It covers the hospital and a portion of my fees," he said. "But between deductible and coinsurance, you're looking at about $5,000 out of pocket. Maybe a little less, depending on the final bill. You could do a payment plan, but they usually need a good chunk up front. $5,000. I know for some people that's annoying but doable money. For me, living in a tiny Seattle apartment, paying off student loans on a junior graphic designer salary, it might as well have been $5 million. "Do you have family who can help?" he asked carefully. That question hurt more than anything on the MRI. "I'll figure something out," I said, because that's what everyone in my life expected from me. "I always do." He studied me for a moment. "You've been in pain a long time, Emma. It's okay to ask for help." I gave him a tight smile I'd perfected over the years. "We'll see." On the bus ride home, my leg throbbed with every bump. An elderly lady offered me her seat and I almost burst into tears. I grew up hearing that I was tough, stoic, the independent one. I thought those were compliments. Sitting there, trying not to cry in public because my nerves were being crushed by my own spine, those words felt more like an excuse, like everyone had decided my pain didn't count because I didn't scream loud enough. At home, I microwaved a heat pack, lay it across my lower back, and finally did what I'd been dreading. I called my mom. She answered on the second ring, bright and breathless. "Emma." "Hey, honey, can I call you back in, 10 minutes? We're in the middle of, wait, actually, you have to see this." There was a flurry of noise, and suddenly my screen was filled with crystal chandeliers and a grand staircase. In the corner, my mom's face beamed. "Isn't it gorgeous?" she asked. "The Harborview Hotel. This is the ballroom Lily wants. Oh, Lily, come stand next to me so Emma can see your dress." My little sister practically floated into frame, all big brown eyes and glossy curls, hugging a folder of brochures. "Ing, can you believe this place?" she squealed. "They can do indoor fireworks. Indoors. Like the Oscars." Camera swung around again, giving me a dizzy view of white tablecloths and towering flower arrangements before landing back on my mom. "We're in the middle of our first consultation," she said. "The coordinator is explaining packages." "But what's up, sweetheart? Everything okay?" "No, I wanted to say. My spine is crumbling and my leg is going numb." Out loud, I said, "I'll be quick. I had my MRI today." Mom's smile faltered just a little. "Oh, right. The back thing. What did he say, more PT?" "He says I need surgery," I replied. "Within a couple of months. If I don't, I could have permanent nerve damage." Lily's smile dropped entirely. "Wait, what?" "It's called a discectomy infusion," I said, watching their faces shrink into the little window on my screen. "My insurance covers most of it, but I'd still owe about $5,000. They want a big chunk up front. I can't swing that on my own. I was wondering if you could help me with a loan. I'll pay you back every month." There was a pause long enough for me to hear the faint murmur of the wedding coordinator in the background. Something about gold package versus platinum. Finally, Mom cleared her throat. $5,000. She repeated like she was tasting the number. "Roughly," I said. "I can send the estimate. I know it's a lot, but we're already stretched thin," she cut in. "The ballroom alone is $150 with the service fees. And Lily's dress, the photographer, the open bar." "Mom," I interrupted, my voice shaking despite my best efforts, "I'm talking about surgery on my spine, not a spa weekend." Dad's voice appeared from somewhere off-screen. "What's going on?" "Emma's doctor says she needs surgery," Mom said, angling the phone so he and Lily squeezed into the frame. $5,000 out of pocket. Dad winced. "Ouch. That's how it feels," I said dryly. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Pumpkin, you know we love you. But we just wired a non-refundable deposit. If we pull back now, we lose 50 grand. 50, my head spun. You just paid $50,000 today? Well, not all today, Mom rushed to clarify. There's a schedule, but it's committed. It's not like we can just reallocate that to something else. I'm not asking you to cancel the wedding, I said. I'm asking if you can help me not end up in a wheelchair. Don't be dramatic, Mom snapped, then caught herself. I mean, the doctor didn't say wheelchair, did he? He said nerve damage, I said. He said loss of function. He said sooner is better. Lily bit her lip. How dangerous is the surgery? She asked quietly. There are risks, I said. But living like this has risks too. Another pause. The coordinator's voice drifted through my speaker. If you want the string quartet for cocktail hour, that's an additional. Dad sighed. Could you maybe ask the hospital about a payment plan? Or do one of those online fundraisers? People are very generous these days. You know that moment when somebody says something so awful that your brain kind of disconnects for a second? I stared at my own reflection in the dark part of the screen, trying to process. You want me to ask strangers on the internet to help pay for my surgery because you're busy paying for fireworks? I asked. Don't make it sound like that, Mom protested. This is Lily's special day. She's dreamed about this since she was a little girl. We can't just, she gestured helplessly around the room, half do it. You're the strong one, Em, Dad added. You always land on your feet. You worked 3 jobs in college, remember? You'll figure this out. Lily is more fragile. She needs us right now. There it was. The old script. Emma the rock. Lily the porcelain doll. I felt something inside me crack like ice under a boot. Right, I said quietly. Because my spinal cord will understand that this is bad timing for you. Don't guilt trip us, Mom said, her voice sharpening. We've done everything for you girls. We paid for your braces for your first car. You paid half my braces and a quarter of a used car, I reminded her. I paid off the rest working at Dairy Queen. That's not the point, she said. The point is, we have to prioritize right now. You're an adult. We can't keep bailing you out. Bailing me out. As if I'd been asking for luxury, not basic medical care. I realized suddenly that no matter what I said, nothing would change. The numbers in their heads were already balanced. $250K for Lily's fairy tale wedding, 0 for my surgery. Okay, I said, my voice strangely flat. Got it. Thanks for letting me know where I stand. Emma, don't be like that, Mom started, but I'd already hit the red button. Call ended with a small, final click. I didn't move for a long time. The heating pad under my back cooled from warm to lukewarm to useless. My leg burned. My hands felt numb. Out of habit, my brain started making excuses for them. They're under a lot of stress. Weddings are complicated. They just panicked. Then another voice, smaller but sharper, whispered. They heard surgery and thought inconvenience. My phone buzzed. Lily, I didn't know it was that bad. I'm sorry. Can we talk later? Mom, we love you. Please don't twist our words. We just can't do everything. Everything. As if I'd been asking them to move a mountain, not to shift a fraction of the mountain of money they were pouring into one night. I turned my phone face down and stared at the ceiling until my eyes blurred. The next morning, my leg gave out halfway down the stairs from my apartment. 1 second I was gripping the railing, the next my knee buckled and I ended up on my butt, heart pounding, pain shooting fire from my spine to my toes. The landlord's wife, Mrs. Ortiz, poked her head out of her door. Emma? You okay, Mija? Embarrassment flushed hot under my skin. Yeah, sorry, I said, forcing a laugh. Just clumsy today. She eyed me skeptically. You limp all the time now. That not clumsy. That hurt. I opened my mouth to deflect, but the words stuck in my throat. Maybe it was the grandmotherly firmness in her voice, or the fact that my pride had been ground down to powder the night before. My back's messed up, I admitted. Doctor says I need surgery. I can't afford it. She clucked her tongue. Health here is crazy. She helped me to my feet, surprisingly strong. You have insurance? Not good enough, I said. Then you ask your family, she said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I did, I said. They're busy. She studied my face, something sad and knowing flickering in her eyes. Sometimes, she said quietly, family is the people who help you when things are ugly, not the people who take pictures when things look pretty. I didn't realize how badly I needed to hear that until my eyes stung. At work, my boss, Maya, took one look at me hobbling to my desk and cornered me in the break room. Sit, she ordered, pointing at a chair. Now talk. So I did. The MRI, the surgery, the 5,000, the phone call at the Harborview. By the time I finished, she was holding her coffee mug so tight her knuckles were white. Let me get this straight, she said. Your parents are dropping $250,000 on Cinderella's wedding, but they can't float you $5,000 so you don't end up permanently disabled? I winced. When you say it like that, it sounds like emotional neglect with extra steps, she snapped. I stared down at my hands. They've always told me I'm the strong one, I muttered. Like that's a compliment. Sometimes strong is just what people call you when they want free labor, she said. Look, I can't fix your parents, but I can help with one thing. She pulled out her phone. We've got overflow work from the marketing department, she said. Email campaigns, social media graphics. I can route a bunch your way as freelance. We'll pay you standard contractor rates on top of your salary. It won't be 5,000 overnight, but it'll chip away at it. My eyes welled up again. Maya, I can't. You can say thank you, she interrupted. And you can promise me you'll stop pretending this is no big deal. I need you in one piece. I laughed wetly. Yes, boss. That night, back in my apartment, I opened my laptop and stared at a blank browser tab. GoFundMe. The idea made my skin crawl. I'd always been the one who prided herself on handling her own mess. Asking strangers for help felt like admitting failure, like saying my own family couldn't be bothered. But then I thought about Dr. Howard saying permanent damage. I thought about my parents telling me to figure it out while they picked chair covers. I clicked Start a Fundraiser. Title: Help Emma Keep Walking, Urgent Spinal Surgery Costs. I wrote and rewrote the story 3 times, deleting anything that sounded like a guilt trip, sticking to facts. Diagnosis. Symptoms. The estimated cost. That insurance covered most, but not all. That I was working extra hours and cutting expenses, but time mattered. I didn't mention the wedding. I wasn't ready to drag that into public. When I finally hit publish, my heart hammered so hard I thought my fusion might happen spontaneously. I shared the link once on my private social media with a shaking hand, added a small note, "This is really hard for me to post. Any help, even a share, means more than you know," and closed the app. Then I waited for the humiliation to wash over me. Instead, my phone pinged. Amanda donated $50. You carried my lazy butt through college, let us carry you now. Tom donated $200. You did an entire rebrand for me in a weekend. Consider this partial interest. Mrs. Ortiz donated $100 from your upstairs family. No arguing. Within 24 hours, my coworkers, high school friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years had pooled enough to cover almost half of the 5,000. The comments were full of variations of, "You've always been there for everyone. Now it's our turn." My parents did not donate. Lily sent $50 and a message. "I'm sorry I didn't push them harder. I didn't realize how serious it was. I love you." I stared at the words, didn't realize for a long time. We both knew I'd told her plenty of times how bad the pain was. But I let it go. We'd grown up in the same house but inhaled different air. By the end of the 3rd week, between GoFundMe, extra freelance work, and raiding what little savings I had, I finally had enough to schedule the surgery. When I called Dr. Howard's office to book a date, I felt like I was scheduling my own execution and rescue at the same time. I texted my parents the date out of courtesy. Surgery is scheduled for May 14th. Hospital is St. Mary's. 7 a.m. check-in. Mom, that's the same week as Lily's final dress fitting, weary face. Dad, we'll see what we can do about visiting. Things are very hectic. They did not see what they could do. Lily showed up. The morning of the surgery, I sat in a scratchy gown, tugging at my arm, trying to breathe past the smell of antiseptic. My mind kept flipping between worst-case scenarios, paralysis, infection, not waking up, and small, petty thoughts like I hope they don't shave too much of my hair. "Emma." A nurse peeked in. "You have a visitor." Lily slipped in, carrying an enormous tumbler of coffee I wasn't allowed to drink and a stuffed animal that looked like an anxious llama. "I know you can't have this yet," she said, setting the coffee down. "But you'll want it later." And this guy looked like he understands chronic anxiety, so she placed the llama on my lap. Her eyes were rimmed in red. She'd clearly rushed. There was a bobby pin half stuck in her hair. "You came," I said, my throat tightening. "Of course I came," she said. "I told Mom once that I wasn't missing my sister's spinal surgery. She said I was being dramatic." I said, "Well, never mind what I said." But I came. I laughed, then winced as the movement made my back protest. "You're not going to get in trouble? Wedding planning police going to arrest you?" I asked. She shrugged. "Let them. They're at a cake tasting right now." Course they were. She reached for my hand. "I know I've been selfish," she said quietly. They made me the center of the universe, and I didn't exactly fight it. But I swear, Em, I never wanted it at your expense. My eyes burned. I know, I whispered. It's not. I'm not mad at you. Not really. Just tired. A nurse came to wheel me toward the OR. As we rolled down the hallway, Lily walked beside me, holding my hand until the last possible second. Hey, she said, forcing a watery smile. When you're bionic, you can outdance everybody at my wedding. If I come, I joked weakly. Her face faltered. Please come, she said. Even if you hate every minute of it. Please. I didn't answer. The anesthesiologist was already introducing himself. Surgery is a weird thing. 1 second you're staring at the ceiling tiles, the next you're waking up convinced only 5 minutes have passed, even though someone's rebuilt part of your skeleton. I woke in a fog of pain and drugs. My back felt like it had been used as a cutting board and then sewn back together by an enthusiastic but inexperienced quilter. My throat burned from the breathing tube. Everything hurt. But there was something else too, the absence of a certain kind of pain. Constant electric shock down my leg was muted. Not gone, not yet, but different. Quieter. Recovery was brutal. There's no romantic way to explain needing help to roll over in bed or crying because you dropped the TV remote and couldn't reach it. Lily came by as often as she could, smuggling in real food and gossip from the outside world. My parents called once. Hey, kiddo, Dad said, his voice too cheerful. How's the bionic back? Hurts like hell, I said frankly. But Dr. Howard says it went well. They decompressed the nerve. Good, he said. We've been saying prayers. Mom picked up the line. We would have come, if things weren't so crazy with the wedding. I stared at the hospital ceiling. You've said that. Well, it's true, she snapped, defensive. We're juggling a lot, and you're strong. You don't need hand-holding. I did need help, I said. You said no. There was a small, offended silence. We can't undo that now, she said stiffly. We just have to move forward. Focus on Lily's big day. It'll lift everyone's spirits, including yours. Right, I said. Because nothing says emotional healing like chair covers. Don't be snide, she said, then shifted gears. Listen, we need to know if you'll be okay to stand during the ceremony. You're still a bridesmaid, right? The fact that her main concern was whether I'd look symmetrical in photos hit me like a slap. I suddenly felt very, very tired. I don't know yet, I said. I'm focusing on learning to shower without wanting to scream. Okay, she fussed. Just keep us posted. She hung up with a breezy, love you. That felt more like a closing greeting than an actual sentiment. Took months to feel like I lived in my body again. I did physical therapy 3 times a week, practicing careful steps, rebuilding muscles that had been compensating for years. I learned how to get out of bed like a log instead of twisting. I learned my limits, painfully and slowly. On good days, I felt hopeful. On bad days, I resented every person I saw jogging. My GoFundMe backers checked in more than my parents did. Amanda sent a care package of fuzzy socks and terrible romance novels. Mrs. Ortiz brought soup. Maya kept my workload gentle and reminded me that rest was not laziness. Somewhere in all that, anger turned into clarity. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Lee, because Maya guilted me into it. You can't just fix the hardware and ignore the software, she'd said, handing me a business card. Dr. Lee listened as I told her about my family, the way my parents had always framed things, the Emma's the strong one, Lily's the fragile one narrative that had shaped everything. This might sound harsh, Dr. Lee said after one particularly tearful session, but it sounds like your parents treated you less like a child and more like a tool. A tool? I echoed. A resource, she clarified. Someone they could rely on, lean on, brag about, but not necessarily care for in the same way. Tools don't need rest. Tools don't need money spent on them unless they break. And when they break, you just blame the tool. That feels awful, I admitted. But also accurate. What would it look like, she asked, if you stopped volunteering to be their tool? Questions scared me more than the surgery had. By the time Lily's wedding approached, I could walk without a cane most days. Stairs were still an adventure, but I could manage. Lily texted me constantly, photos of centerpieces, dress fittings, long paragraphs about seating chart politics. In almost none of those messages were our parents the heroes. "They're driving me insane," she wrote once. Mom cried for 20 minutes because I don't want ice sculptures. Who even wants frozen swans? Another time, Dad suggested we move the ceremony up an hour because the sunset lighting will look better in photos. I suggested he marry his own reflection. I started to see the cracks in the golden child narrative. Lily wasn't blind, just trained. The night before the wedding, she came over to my condo against our parents' wishes. "They think it's bad luck to see me before tomorrow," she said, rolling her eyes as she let herself in. I told them I was dropping something off at the dry cleaner. She looked around. "Wow, this place is actually you. Cozy. Adult." She smiled. "I'm proud of you, you know." "For renting," I teased. "For surviving," she corrected. We sat on my couch, my spine propped carefully against a pillow, and talked like we hadn't talked in years. "I found your GoFundMe again the other night," she admitted, picking at her nails. I read all the comments. "People really love you, Em." I shrugged, overwhelmed. "I've done a lot of free logo work in my time," I joked weakly. Her eyes flashed. "More than Mom and Dad ever did." "That's not fair," I said automatically, the reflex kicking in. "Isn't it?" She challenged. "They will finance my dream centerpieces to the ends of the earth, but you had to beg strangers for help to stop your leg from going numb. How is that love?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. For a moment, she sighed. "I know you're angry," she said. "I am too. But will you still come tomorrow?" "Please." I hesitated. "Not for them," she said quickly. "For me. I need one person there who actually sees me, not the Barbie doll they think I am." That got me. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'll be there. Promise." "I promise." The harbor view on the day of the wedding looked like someone had shaken a magazine and all the most expensive pages had fallen out into one room. White roses cascaded from tall glass vases. A string quartet played near the bar. Guests floated around in formal wear, sipping champagne like they did this every weekend. I wore a dusty rose bridesmaid dress that fit weird around my incision and matched the exact shade of the table linens. My back ached, but it was a manageable, almost normal ache. Mom swept over in a navy evening gown that probably cost more than my car. "You look beautiful," she said, air-kissing my cheeks. "Stand up straight, you'll thank me when you see the pictures." I swallowed a retort. Dad came up behind her, his tux fitting just a little too tight. "Look at my girls," he said, misty-eyed. Such blessings. I wondered, not for the first time, whether he'd ever see us as anything but props in his proud father narrative. During the ceremony itself, I focused on not passing out. Standing on a hard marble floor for 40 minutes was like holding a plank for an eternity, but I made it. When my legs started trembling, I discreetly shifted more weight onto the other. Lily looked radiant. Ryan cried openly when he saw her, which made everyone coo. My parents basked. The reception, after the photos and the dances and the clinking of forks against glasses, the DJ called for toasts. The best man spoke. Then the maid of honor. Then Dad took the mic, launching into a long speech about fatherhood and watching his little princess grow up. "From the moment Lily was born, we knew she was special," he said. "Not that Emma isn't special too," he added quickly, gesturing vaguely in my direction. "Emma's always been our rock. Our strong one." The one we could count on. There it was again, my old job title. Something inside me snapped into focus. If I didn't say anything now, if I let this night become another glossy page in the family album, nothing would ever change. They'd go on telling everyone how much they'd sacrificed, how blessed they were, while stepping over the wreckage of everything they didn't want to see. The DJ thanked Dad and reached for the mic to announce the father-daughter dance. "Can I say something?" I heard myself ask. My voice sliced through the chatter. The DJ looked surprised but handed me the microphone. "This is Emma, our bride's sister," he said, trying to sound smooth. "She has a few words." Every head turned. I suddenly felt hyper-aware of my spine, of the scar under my dress, of my heart beating against the thin metal of the mic. I cleared my throat. "First," I said, looking at Lily, "you look stunning. You and Ryan clearly adore each other. I wish you every good thing that marriage can be, messy, real, kind, and full of inside jokes and snacks." Laughter rippled softly through the crowd. Lily smiled, eyes already watering. "Second," I continued, "I need to tell a story. Not to ruin anything, but because pretending it didn't happen has been slowly killing me." Mom's smile froze. Dad's shoulders stiffened. "A few months ago," I said, "my doctor told me I needed spinal surgery. He showed me scans of my backbone literally collapsing in on itself. He said that if we waited too long, I could have permanent nerve damage. I was losing feeling in my leg." A hush fell over the room. "I don't bring this up for sympathy," I continued. "I bring it up because when I got that news, I did what most people would do. I called my parents. I told them I needed surgery. I told them my insurance would leave me with about $5,000 to pay, money I didn't have. I met my parents' eyes. They told me they couldn't help," I said. "Because of this wedding." A few people gasped quietly. Someone's fork clinked against a plate and didn't move again. "The venue we're standing in tonight costs around $150,000, I went on. "The total wedding budget is about $250,000. Flowers, fireworks, a string quartet, chair covers, a night to remember." I let the words hang in the air. "When I asked for $5,000 to keep walking," I said quietly, "they suggested I try a GoFundMe." The silence this time was heavy. "I did," I said. "Friends, coworkers, ex-clients, my landlord, people who barely know me, helped me pay for the surgery that let me stand here tonight. My parents did not. My sister did, though. She sat by my hospital bed while they tasted cakes." Mom's hand flew to her chest. "Emma, how dare you?" "How dare I tell the truth?" I asked, turning toward her. "How dare I point out the math? You spent 50 times more on this wedding than I asked for to prevent nerve damage. You can call it ungrateful, you can call it dramatic. I call it a choice." I turned back to the mic, my voice steadier than I felt. "This isn't about punishing anyone," I said. "It's about balance. About the stories we tell. Tonight, you're all seeing a picture of a perfect family throwing a perfect wedding. But there's another picture, too. The one where their strong daughter had to beg strangers for help while they ordered fireworks." My hand shook slightly. I tightened my grip on the mic. "I'm done being the quiet part of that picture," I finished. "I love my sister. I'm happy she's happy. But I will not keep pretending my pain was an acceptable sacrifice for aesthetics." I handed the microphone back to the DJ before anyone could stop me and walked off the dance floor. No one clapped. No one booed. The room just buzzed like a beehive someone had kicked. Behind me, I could hear Mom hissing my name, Dad sputtering, Lily sobbing. I didn't turn around. Every step toward the exit hurt, but it was the kind of hurt that meant healing, not breaking. Outside, the night air was cool against my flushed skin. I leaned against a stone pillar, breathing hard, feeling my spine protest and then settle. The ballroom doors banged open. "Emma!" Lily called, gathering her gown so she wouldn't trip. "Wait." I turned. Her mascara was running. She looked like a broken-hearted Disney bride. "I'm sorry," I said immediately. "I didn't want to ruin your wedding. I just couldn't." "You didn't ruin anything," she interrupted, voice shaking. "You told the truth. Someone needed to." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "They're freaking out," she said. "Mom says you attacked them. Dad's trying to spin it like a misunderstanding. Half the guests are stunned. The other half look like they want to hug you." "I don't want their pity," I muttered. "You didn't ask for pity," she said. "You asked for accountability. There's a difference." She glanced back at the glowing windows where silhouettes moved. "I have something for you," she said, pulling a folded envelope from the bodice of her dress. "Before they come charging out here like bulls." "What is this?" I asked. "The account info for the wedding fund they set up for me," she said. $50,000. They put it in my name as a gift. They keep telling everyone how generous they are, how they wanted to set us up for a perfect start. I stared. "Lily, I can't." "You can," she insisted, pushing the envelope into my hand. "I talked to Ryan earlier. We don't want their strings. We'll be fine with a smaller trip and no ice sculptures. Use it to pay off whatever's left of your surgery. Save the rest." "Mom and Dad will lose their minds," I said. She let out a humorless laugh. "A little late to worry about that, don't you think? Besides, maybe it's time they feel something they can't just fix with a check." I swallowed hard. "I don't want to take your money." "It's not theirs anymore," she said. "It's mine. And I want to invest it in someone who actually needs it." Tears blurred my vision. I thought of all the years we'd spent in our assigned roles, me as the uncomplaining support beam, her as the fragile centerpiece. Felt like we were both stepping off a script we hadn't written. "I don't know what our relationship with them is going to look like after tonight," she said quietly. "But I want you in my life. Not as my martyr sister. As my actual sister." I took a shaky breath. "Okay," I said. "Then I'll try. For us." She smiled, watery and real. "Good. Because I'm probably going to need your graphic design skills for all the apology cards I'm about to send." Despite everything, I laughed. Behind her, I heard the doors slam open again and my mother's voice rising. Lily squeezed my hand. "Go," she said. "I'll handle them. It's about time they realize I'm not made of glass." I nodded. Then I turned and walked into the night, my back aching, my heart pounding, but my feet, for once, moving entirely under my own power. A year later, I watched fireworks over the water from the balcony of my new condo, a place with decent insulation and no stairs, bought with a combination of my savings, Lily's gift, and a raise Maya insisted I take. "You can't keep being the backbone of this department and let your actual backbone go unpaid," she'd said. My relationship with my parents had cooled to something distant and polite. They sent holiday texts. I sent brief replies. We saw each other twice in 12 months, once for Thanksgiving, once for a cousin's baby shower. Both times, conversations stayed on safe topics, weather, work, their dog. They never apologized directly. The closest Mom came was, "We never meant to hurt you." "Intent isn't a refund," Dr. Lee said when I told her. "But it's data." Lily and I, though, grew closer. She started therapy. She pushed back when our parents tried to use her as a go-between. "I'm not your messenger," she told them once on speaker, while I sat on her couch for moral support. "If you have a problem with Emma, talk to her. Or maybe look in a mirror." Afterward, she looked at me with wide eyes. "Did I sound mean?" "You sounded like someone who finally realized she's not a prop," I said. We celebrated the 1-year anniversary of my surgery with takeout and a cheesy cake that said, "Still walking," in lopsided icing. It was ridiculous. It was perfect. Sometimes I thought about that night at the Harborview, the chandeliers, the gasps, my voice shaking through the sound system. For a long time I worried I'd been too harsh, too public. Then I remembered the MRI, the weeks of fear, the ache in my bones, my parents' casual suggestion that strangers would be more helpful than they were. I remembered the hundreds of comments from people who donated saying things like family should have your back, not break it. And I realized something. Revenge isn't always some grand act of destruction. Sometimes it's just telling the truth out loud in a room where everyone's been trained to lie. Sometimes it's walking away on legs your parents didn't care to save and building a life where you are no longer the last line item on the budget. They spent $250,000 so the world would see them as doting parents throwing the wedding of the century. They refused $5,000 when their oldest daughter's spine was collapsing. In the end, I got what their money couldn't buy: a body that could heal, a sister who woke up, and a self-respect that didn't depend on anyone's approval. They chose fireworks. I chose my future.